أود في البداية أن أشكر القائمين على هذا الملتقى المهم جدا. يعني موضوع اليوم إن شاء الله بإذن الله سنتكلم في موضوع جدا مهم. الملتقى يدور حول نوعية من المخاطر المهمة جدا وهي third party risk. I am very happy to start this session, okay, and I will talk about how to build a robust third-party risk management framework. في البداية I want to present the agenda of our today's session. So we'll start with a very short introduction talking about why we need third-party risk management. Okay, and we'll start with a very short case. Then we'll go directly and see what is the component of the framework, how to build in practice our third-party risk management with its 6 pillars. And after that, we'll have a conclusion and discussion. Okay? So let's start. First, some information about myself. I started my career in internal audit. Then, after almost 25 years, I shift to GRC, Governance, Risk and Compliance, to be expert and advisor in this field. And I had multiple position, C-level in this area. I have 5 masters in different fields, in accounting, in risk management, in internal audit, strategic management, organization strategies, and real estate law. And I hold a certificate in CIA, in internal audit, and in risk management, GRC, and ISO lead auditor. So today we'll just a few words about my company. So I built this company almost 5 years now. We are providing services in GRC, internal audit, and we are software development in this field. And our last achievement is a GRC software. We just achieve and complete this software. It's a very comprehensive software about these 3 modules: governance, risk, and compliance. And inshallah, anyone who wants to have a demo or want to discuss this new software, I am ready for that, okay? Let's start for our session today. Why we need third-party risk management. All of us know that today's most of the concept we are talking about in our companies, especially in terms of controls, we are talking about controls based on risk. Controls based on risk. I take an example of internal audit. For example, internal audit is based on risk. Okay? And when we talk about risk, we talk about categories of risk. We talk about strategic risk, financial risk, reputational risk, compliance risk. And another very, very important concept today we have to talk about is third-party risk. Why? Because it's not enough to have a strong internal control in our company today. It's not enough at all. And I will give you a case for that. Even if you have a very strong internal control framework, system in your company, you can be exposed to very high risk, even catastrophic risk. Coming from where? Coming from third parties. Coming from third parties. These third parties, generally speaking, when we talk about third party, we talk about big company. Okay, big vendor. No. The reality is this risk can come from even small, very small vendors. The day when you give access to your platform, your system, to any third party outside your company, you are exposed to very high risk, regardless the importance of the vendor. regardless the importance of even the person you are giving access to your platform, to your system. Okay? So we need to be very, very careful. In practice, we need to include third-party risk in our risk management system, in our risk register. Okay? Very, very important. The last paper published by IIA, okay, it's related to how to audit third-party risk based on the new standards. You know, IIA published it in early this year. This year it's becoming official, new standard, okay? And in this standard, there is a new concept talking about typical requirements. This is the new in this standard. Now the IA is aware about some requirements that internal audit should focus on, okay, when they are doing audit, like cybersecurity, like third-party risk. And they published the paper explaining the methodology how to audit third-party risk. Okay? So it's very, very important. It should be embedded in our risk management system. That's why we need third-party risk. Today, all our companies are dealing with external vendors. All of us. All of us. And we are sharing some information with them. Sometimes we are not giving the importance to this fact. This fact is very important. We are just signing NDA, and we think that this NDA will protect us. Okay? Sometimes, who signed the NDA? Usually the responsible of the company, of the vendor, okay, the GM or CEO or sales manager, sign the NDA with you. But behind him, how many people are using this access? You don't know. So we need to be very, very careful. We need to trust the system and not people. We have a trust of people, okay. But most important thing is the system, okay? So we need to protect our system. So that's why today, more and more, we have external vendors, and more we are exposed to very high risk. So what we have to do is to implement a very strong third-party risk management framework. Okay? And there is no one framework for everybody. The framework should be customized to every company, because every company has its own system, has its own risk, so we need to have a customized system. Clear? So let's start with a very short case. It's an international case, famous case, that explains why third-party risk is very, very crucial, very, very important. Okay? So Target Corporation, it's a huge company, US huge company, that employ around 400,000 people. And this company experienced one of the most notorious cybersecurity breaches in US history, exposing the credit and debit card data of over 40 million customers. 40 million customers' information, credit card information, are exposed, along with personal information like names, address, phone, etc., for an additional 70 million individuals. You see the exposure of this risk, the importance of this risk. So database, what we have, all of us, we have database in our company, okay? This database, it's valuable, it costs money. It's a capital. We need to protect it, okay? What happened in this corporation? Attackers, hackers, they infiltrate target system via what? Via a small, very small HVAC vendor. It's called Fuzzy Mechanical. This small vendor had access. They give access to this small vendor. They give access to target vendor portal of electronic billing. So this small vendor has an access to this electronic, this portal, okay? And the project management, and attackers phished vendors' employee credential, so they theft the credential of the employees, so the access of the employees of this vendor, and use it then to steal credential to gain access to target internal network. So this is what happened. So what is the impact of this exposure? Theft of over 40 million customers' credit and debit card information, and it costs to target more than $200 million. In addition to that, reputation damage, consumer trust fell, sales dropped, CEO and CIO resigned. So this is third-party risk importance, okay? The breach was not caused by internal failure. Target Corporation has a strong internal control system inside. But the problem is the breach coming from this access to third party, the access to third party. So they did the security reform, of course. So they target significantly upgrade its cybersecurity infrastructure and implement a chip-enabled cards, adding a small microchip in addition to the traditional magnetic stripe on the card. Okay, so they enforce, they make stronger the card. Okay, the control of the card. So what lesson we can have from this case? First, third-party access must be tightly controlled. We should know to whom we give access and what is the scope of the access and what is the timeline of the access. Very important. Second, continuous monitoring on segmentation are vital. When we give access, it's not only enough. Also, it's not enough. We need to monitor this access. We need to monitor and assess and evaluate this access. Okay? 3, even small vendor can pose big risk. This is very important. This is a problem of this company. So this is a very small vendor. They didn't give any importance to this vendor, and this breach coming from this risk. And 4, lack of risk-based vendor profiling and oversight. It contributes directly to the event. So there is a very low, very weak risk management regarding this vendor management. Now, we have an idea, clear idea why we need third-party risk management, why we need to include our third-party risk management in our system today, in our internal control system, in our risk management, in our GRC system, in our company, okay? So the framework going, we have 20 minutes, time is very fast, okay? Framework now. We have 6 pillars. There is no one framework for everybody. There is no one reference for a third-party risk framework. I will propose you a framework composed by 6 pillars, 6 very logic pillars, which make sense. The first thing is governance, oversight. We need to have an oversight from whom? From the board. You know the board, he is responsible of the internal control system in the company. Okay, even in the regulation today, for example, in Saudi Arabia, in CMA regulation, corporate governance regulation, the responsible of risk management, of internal control, of governance is the board. Okay? So the board oversight, it's very important. How? How we can have very good, strong oversight? By publishing policies, procedure, leadership. It's very, very important, these 3 things. This gives a strong methodology to control the third-party risk. Second element, which very, very important also, it's risk identification, risk assessment. We need to identify risk related to this relationship between our company and the vendor. Third, the onboarding or the contract. When we sign the contract with the vendor, okay, when we accept the vendor to access to our system, what we should do. Fourth, monitoring this relationship. It's not one-time control. The control should be continuous, okay? Because in some cases, the vendor can stay with us a long time, okay? Years, sometimes, okay? So we need to monitor our relationship with the vendor and this access. 5 element is the incident management and issue resolution. Anytime issue raise, we need to react quickly. And 6 element and last element is the offboarding. When the vendor exit our system, so what we should do. Also, this is very, very important. Like termination for employee, for example. In our code of conduct in the company, we have clauses saying that even when the employee leave the company, he is responsible and accountable for some information, confidential information, okay? Even when he leave the company. Same thing for the vendor. Let's go through these 6 elements quickly. So governance and oversight. So it's coming from the board, and for the executive, board and senior executive must provide clear direction, approve risk policies, define the organization risk appetite regarding third parties. It's very important that we need to set up a culture in our company. The culture coming from the top, never coming from the bottom. It's coming from the board. The board should have a clear direction that we don't allow that any risk regarding third-party access to our system. So it should be clear. The risk appetite should be low or high. They should decide. And everybody should know about that, okay? And this information, this direction, should be taken into consideration where? In our risk register, in our risk management system, everywhere. We should be aware, all the responsible in the company should be aware about this risk appetite. Regulatory compliance. Organizations are held accountable not just for their own compliance, but even for the compliance of third party. I give you an example. For example, if we deal with a vendor, international vendor, there is some international law and regulation. We should ensure that this vendor is in line, is complying with this international, for example, human rights, regulation, etc. It's also our responsibility before signing any contract with him, okay? And I will go quickly because we don't have time to go through all the example. I have an example for every element, okay? And you will have the document. Let's go to the second element, which is risk identification and profiling. So when we start looking for vendors, first of all, we need to do our what we name the pre-qualification of vendors. This step, it's very, very important in the internal control system. We need to pre-qualify the vendor before accepting him, okay? How to pre-qualify? We need to take some criteria that give us some confidence regarding this vendor, okay? It's very important. This is the profile of the vendor. Financial, we need to make sure that this vendor exists really, okay? This capacity, financial capacity, it's okay. Everything around this vendor and the environment of this vendor, governance, and regarding trust, his experience, his history, we know to know anything important that can impact our relationship with him, okay? Before signing any contract, before even accepting any proposal from him, okay? In risk identification also, we need to structure a risk assessment, okay, and risk score, and determines whether engagement should be proceed or not with this vendor. So we need to score this vendor before accepting him as a vendor with us, okay? So I will I will go to the third element, which is very, very important also. It's the onboarding of the vendor. When we accept this vendor to be with us, to sign a contract with him, we need to make sure that this vendor, that the contract between us include all the clauses that protect our rights, okay, in this relationship. This is very, very important, okay? So, for example, we need to define roles, define the SLA, data handling control, audit rights. Anytime we can audit this relationship, this vendor, okay, related to the scope with us, okay? We have the right to assess his job, his methodology, anytime to make sure that risks are under control, okay? And also termination clause, it's very, very important to have a very clear termination clause in the contract, okay? The fourth element, it's monitoring and performance management. As I said in the beginning, it's not enough that when we sign a contract, okay, and we give our clause, everything, we give the contract to the legal, and it was controlled, verified, reviewed by all the concerned people. It's not enough. Why? Because things change, risk change, environment change, regulation change. So we need to monitor this relationship from time to time, periodically. Or if there is any change in the regulation, we need to assess this relationship between us and the vendor. What is the purpose of this monitoring? Is to make sure that the risk in this relationship is controlled. Okay? Five pillars of this system, of this framework, is incident management and issue resolution. So we need to report to stakeholders any issue that can raise, okay, related to this relationship between us and the vendor. And we need to react. We need to react quickly in order to mitigate the risk exposed, okay, on time. So if an issue arises, such as security breach or SLA or formal remediation plan must be activated. We need to have an action plan with timelines, root cause analysis. Root cause analysis is very, very important. Why? Because we need to know why this happened, why this incident happened. And we need to update what? Our risk register. Because maybe the score we give to this risk was very low. So we did a wrong assessment to this risk. That's why it happened. It happened. So we need to update our risk register. Based on what? Based on this incident. Okay? In order to avoid this risk happen in the future. Communication protocol, also it's very important. We need to know to whom we should communicate this incident. Okay? To concerned people. So, sixth and last element, it's lifecycle management, continuous improvement. There is two things here. First, offboarding, and second, improvement, continuous improvement. Offboarding, when we terminate the contract, when the contract it's ending, okay, what we should do, okay? And second thing, our framework, our third-party risk management framework should be improved, updated from time to time. It can be yearly, every 2 years, or if there is any change that can impact this framework. So offboarding is very important. As I said, when someone leaves the company, person or company or vendor, we need to make sure that our confidential information is protected. Okay? This is very important. There is a case happen in big company. They are using a platform. This platform becoming obsolete, old. And the company, they forgot to delete this platform. And hackers take advantage of this old platform that no one is using now, and they forgot to delete it, and they go and they steal information from the company. So that's why it's very, very important to monitor our framework, very important to make sure that offboarding of the vendor is controlled. Conclusion, just two things. Nowadays, building a strong third-party risk framework, it's not an option anymore. It's a strategic decision. It should be done. It should be done. We should start. Second thing, with a strong risk, third-party risk management framework, we'll have more resilient company and we'll have more trust and sustainability for our company. Thank you very much.